This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Hi everyone, Larry Bailey here with Mortgage Workflow Partners, bringing you this week's review of last week's information on the market. Listen gang, inflation surprised analysts. Home construction is slowing. This is the review for the week of May 12th, 2025. Inflation came in lower than anticipated in April, indicating that tariff effects haven't fully appeared in economic data yet. Meanwhile, home builder confidence has dropped this spring amid economic uncertainty, with construction activity showing a slowdown. Continue on with these stories to learn what happened last week. Our first story is annual consumer inflation hit a 4-year low. Wholesale inflation cools as companies absorb costs. Home builder confidence drops sharply in May, followed by single-family construction slowing in April. We've got some additional insights to share with you. We've got a family hack of the week, and then we're going to tell you what to look for this week. So the idea here is that if you're listening to the podcast, kudos to you. Thank you very much. If you want to check out the full video so you can see the entire screen share, head over to masteringencompass.com. And if you're leveraging the Encompass platform, gang, definitely make sure you check out what Mortgage Workflow Partners can do for you, focusing on 6 main things to help your company move forward, as well as your entire team, administrators, and users. So let's get into the first story here, and you can see this on screen. We've got a nice image here. This is all about the annual consumer inflation hitting a 4-year low, and we can see this kind of roller coaster ride down. We've got April's inflation coming in cooler than expected, with the consumer price index, that's the CPI, rising just 0.2% for the month, and yearly inflation easing from 2.4 to 2.3%. This improvement was helped by declining food prices and slightly lower gasoline costs. The core CPI, which excludes the food and energy, which are usually volatile, that increased 0.2% monthly while holding steady at 2.8% annually. Shelter costs remain the main driver of inflation, accounting for 35% of the headline CPI and 44% of the core CPI. It's a huge number. This heavy weighting means that shelter costs significantly influence overall inflation trends. However, it's important to understand that the CPI still overstates shelter costs compared to softer, real-time rental data, which suggests that actual inflation could be lower. Bottom line in this story is that inflation continues moving in the right direction, with headline and core annual readings at their lowest level since early 2021. However, April's tariff announcements may not be fully reflected yet, as businesses are likely stocked inventory ahead of the implementation of those tariffs. For example, used car prices fell 0.5% in April, while new car prices remain flat, contrary to industry reports showing price increases. This suggests, of course, a potential lag in government data being reported. Meanwhile, declining airfare and hotel prices suggest weakening travel demand, confirmed by recent airline and U.S. Travel Association reports. Yeah. So again, we'll wait and see what happens here. Over this weekend, of course, if you saw the news, you saw that President Trump was insisting that Walmart eat the tariff differences and not increase prices. Yeah. Next story. Wholesale inflation cools as companies absorb costs. April saw a notable cooling in wholesale inflation, with the producer price index, that's the PPI, that dropped 0.5% for the month. This brought the yearly increase down to just 2.4%. Similarly, the core PPI, that's the same thing like in CPI, where it strips out the volatile food and energy prices, that fell 0.4% over the month, with its annual rate decreasing to 3.1%. It's worth noting that March's PPI figures were revised upward for both headline and core readings. So in this story, the bottom line is that the wholesale inflation slowdown largely stems from shrinking profit margins. This goes back to the idea that, hey, we're not going to pass along these tariff increases to the consumer because we're afraid that the consumers will buy less, which will spur not growth, but recession. Companies have been absorbing costs for higher tariffs rather than passing on consumers. This is what we're talking about. And as I just mentioned in the previous part, Walmart recently confirmed this trend, noting they've been shouldering increased costs, though consumers may eventually see price increases. Listen, it's business. Like I thought the whole idea was government stay out of business. And here we have government suggesting that the businesses should make less. Yeah, I don't think that's sustainable. We all know this. So we'll see where this goes. Next story is home builder confidence dropping sharply in May. And you can see this trend line back in December. Builders were feeling pretty good. This is when interest rates were a little bit lower than they are today. And of course, January, we've got the agenda coming in from the current administration, and we can see this steady decline. We see the difference between April and May is 6 points. So this is the story here. Builder sentiment took a significant hit this month with the National Association of Home Builders. That's the NAHB. That index fell from 40 in April to 34 in May. That's a 6-point decline. Buyer traffic dropped 2 points to 23, and current sales fell 8 points to 37. Sales expectations decreased 1 point to 42. So the story here is that the NAHB attributes this decline to several factors, of course, including elevated interest rates, tariff concerns, uncertain building material costs, and a generally unclear economic outlook. However, 90% of survey responses were collected before the May 12th announcement regarding the 90-day reduction in tariffs between U.S. and China, so a rebound next month is certainly possible. Chairman of the NAHB, this is Buddy Hughes, remarked that the builders are optimistic that future trade negotiations and advancements in tax policy will contribute to stabilizing the economic outlook and uncertainty. So the interesting part here for Buddy Hughes to make a note of this, first of all, home builders source lumber. A lot of lumber comes from Canada. I don't know this to be certain, but I'm pretty sure they're our number one supplier of softwood, which is what we use to build homes. So obviously a lot of appliances and other things come from China, processed materials, things like that. So obviously that has an impact. But I want you to read into this part right here where it says the advancements in tax policy. So this is a big deal because obviously if the current Republican-controlled Congress passes these tax policy, these permanent tax breaks to corporations, this is going to result in some decisions to be made in terms of growth and these kinds of things. Again, completely separate from the cost of materials, but how much taxes should you pay? It's always interesting to me to see how large corporations make decisions that affect everybody in America with regards to that. It's all about the profits, of course, because that's why businesses are in business. But these are mechanisms that are extraordinarily difficult to understand, even if you're in the business. Let's keep going here. This next story is about single-family construction slowing in April, and this ties into what we just heard from Buddy Hughes at the NAHB. So after March's sharp decline, housing starts recovered slightly, 1.6%. That's ever so slight. However, this increase came entirely from multifamily projects, as single-family construction actually fell by 2.1%. Building permits, which include future construction plans, dropped 4.7% overall, with single-family permits declining 5.1%. While permits are our best indicator of housing supply, they may be approved projects. They never may break ground because builders just don't want to build, even if they have a permit. Bottom line here is housing starts provide a more concrete picture of future inventory since construction has already begun. April's seasonally adjusted annual rate of just 1.36 million homes falls significantly below the 1.8 million average annual household formations over the past 5 years. Even with completions running at 1.46 million annually, new housing supply remains well below household demand. This persistent imbalance should continue to support home values in months ahead. I can tell you this is just a personal note. I'm actually looking at a few different homes to purchase in South Jersey for investments because these are homes that I think are undervalued and are in need of some repair. And I think the plan here is that houses that are, as I drove around this particular neighborhood, I saw a lot of houses in need of repair. I think that's going to be where some opportunities are for those that are out there that are listening, that are interested in trying to figure out how to navigate this market in terms of making some positive investments. Go look for the ugliest house in a good neighborhood. Fix that house up. It's usually a good plan, but always beware. Some additional insights for this week's market update. We've got retail sales inching up 0.1% in April versus March, slightly better than expected flat performance. The slowdown in March's robust 1.7 increase, of course, was when consumers rushed out to buy all these purchases ahead of the anticipated tariffs. The closely watched control group of this, which excludes out the autos, gasoline, building materials, and food services, that actually dropped 0.2%, which missed forecasts. This metric is particularly important as it feeds directly into Q2 GDP calculations. That's the second quarter of 2025. The overall report signals some consumer weakness and reduced spending on non-essential items. On the employment front, the initial jobless claims held steady at 229,000, remaining at historically low levels. However, continuing claims, that ticked up by 9,000, going back to 1.881 million. This higher figure suggests job seekers are experiencing longer unemployment periods, a trend that has persisted throughout much of the year. We've got a family hack of the week. You should celebrate the National Salad Month and the National Strawberry Month this May with this strawberry arugula salad from the Pioneer Woman. You can check out the recipe that's here on this spot during the video. If you are listening to podcasts, head over to masterencompass.com, check it out on the screen, take a screenshot, make it up. Let us know how you make out. I've yet to have anybody make one of these recipes, but I'm looking forward to the very first response that says you made one of these, and I'd love to hear what it was. Here we've got what to look for this week. We've got key housing market indicators ahead this week. We've got April's existing home sales report due on Thursday, followed by the new home sales report on Friday. I do want to remind everybody that next Monday is Memorial Day here in the U.S., which means a lot of these businesses will be closed, the markets will be closed, and it's a great time to reflect on every service member who gave everything that they had, including their life, to save our country and to further our ability to exist, to which we are ever in their debt. So thank you very much ahead of the Memorial Day. I will be back here next week after that. You guys have a great week and good luck. We'll see you then.